Good morning and welcome to another Elite Performance Podcast. Dominic Grill, your co-host with Dr. Jan Kasperwitz. Doc, how you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. Today's podcast it's pretty much about you and this big race you got coming up this weekend. So what do you have coming up on Saturday?
Sunday.
Sunday, my bad.
That's fine. Sunday, September 8th, I am doing the Lehigh Valley Marathon with hopes of qualifying for the Boston Marathon. I am 42 years old. I need to run 3 hours and 10 minutes, which comes down to roughly below a 7:14 pace per mile.
So they actually made it more difficult to actually qualify for the Boston.
That's correct. Last year it was in order to qualify for the 2019 Boston Marathon, I would have needed to run 3:15, and they lowered the standards by 5 minutes, so it's 3:10 for me.
So now that it's more difficult to actually get into Boston, what have you been doing differently, like from a training or because you're really into functional strengthening? What have you been doing different to increase your functional strength so you can push yourself harder?
What I really focused on was, first and foremost, activating my glutes so that I started to run more utilizing my glutes. That was the biggest change. The biggest change I did first of all. The other thing I did was a lot of core strength. What I noticed in the later miles was I started to sort of slouch a little bit. My shoulders would come a little bit forward as I got to later miles, and it caused fatigue. I could legitimately feel the fatigue, and so I built a lot of core strength. And for the last year and a half, I've been strict keto, and my running is completely different without utilizing carbohydrates.
Now you talk about glute strength. Like, what have you been doing to improve your glute strength?
So I've been doing
like
a lot
particular exercises.
Particular exercises. Some of them are hard to definitely demonstrate, but would be hard to explain, a lot easier to demonstrate. But things like clamshells, sideline leg raises, exercises that legitimately activate and isolate that whole region of my body. But a lot of standing exercises so that when I activate the glute, it almost looks like I'm in running form.
Sure, absolutely.
As I'm doing it. So I want my glutes activating. It's wonderful to activate them in a clamshell and a sideline leg raise, things like this. And it definitely has its benefits of that, but that doesn't translate to running form.
So even something like a one-leg kettlebell deadlift.
One leg kettlebell deadlifts, single leg balance, single leg deadlifts, balance, a lot of wobble board, different exercises.
Proprioceptive stuff, yeah, because we get a good amount of runners when they come in here. You can run 5K, you can run as hard as you can. As long as you have some fitness level, you're going to do well. But once you start pushing things to like a half marathon or full marathon pace, that's when all those small little weaknesses pop out. And where glute strength is very important, because the majority of our population, they're sitting on their ass all day, which is deactivating their glutes. And then you're going to be forced to use other muscles when you're running. So when your core isn't functioning properly, your body's also looking for other muscles to create that stability that your core does. So if your core doesn't activate, then your hip's going to be overused, your knee might be overused, and then you get what's called insidious onset of pain, which is pretty much pain just came out of nowhere. No trauma, no significant injury to the area. Just, doc, I don't know what happened. Just my knee just started hurting. And then you get some physical therapy. They throw a kitchen sink at your knee, and it's still not better. Most times you could tie it back to a weak core muscle, which is not activating, forcing other muscles attached to the knee to activate and overwork. So in most cases that I see, especially with marathoners, it's like if you have insidious knee pain, which is pain coming out of nowhere, the bodies are looking at that joint as a very strong area. So what it's going to do, it's going to start overusing that joint, and then it gets inflamed, and then you start getting pain. So what kind of injuries have you been battling up to the marathon?
Up until about 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I was spot on. Everything was going absolutely perfect. And let me just say that if there wasn't some sort of adversity for me going into this race, it would not be a race for Dom. It's just the way my life goes. But so after 2 50-plus mile weeks, the following week I went out and I did a shorter run, about 11 miles, shorter in retrospect. And I had this slight pain in my bottom of my foot.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, it's just sort of overuse. I've been running a lot of miles, a lot of pounding. Definitely assessed my sneakers, and my sneakers are right on point where they need to be. I calculate all the miles on my shoes. I keep a log of it, and I thought maybe I was running in an older pair of sneakers, and I wasn't. A couple runs went by. I did some minor things at home, some icing. I went in front of the infrared light, and it didn't get better. That's when I brought it to your attention, and I would ask you to speak on that injury.
Sure. What I noticed with Don, what was happening is you have like this arch at the middle part of your foot. It's like a keystone arch. But basically, when you have an arch which is made out of bricks, there's one central brick called the keystone. If that keystone, like in your foot, it's called the navicular, if it drops, it's going to throw your foot totally out of balance. So it's very simple to fix. I mean, it's going to take a while to literally fix permanently. But what we do is we'll go in there. I think we shot a YouTube video of it. We'll go in there, we'll mobilize and make sure everything, all the tarsals, and there's a lot of bones in your feet, making sure everything is moving properly. We use some deep tissue laser to move out the inflammation, speed up the repair and regeneration of the tissue in the area. Then we're having go on the power plate. This stretches Achilles, stretches gastrocs, which are his calves, and that will also promote the inflammation from moving out of the area too. And then we'll take some rock tape, and we'll tape that navicular up so it doesn't drop and descend. But yeah, it seems like your issue is pretty much happening just in the beginning of run, not really giving you much issue at the end.
That's correct. After about a mile, it seems to sort of loosen up, if that's even the proper way to say it,
Yep.
and the pain just kind of dissipates. I did have some pain after 15 miles on my last long run, but we hadn't treated it the way we've been treating it, and
Sure.
lately it's feeling so much better.
So physically, it seems like doing all the functional strengthening for your glutes, your core, it's paying off.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, I think you've mentioned the gentleman that you're running with, George. You've mentioned that he told you that you're like a different runner now.
So George is a sub 3 hour marathoner. He's just lightning fast, and I've been running with George for we started running together in 2012, so it's been about 7 years. And he said to me the one day we were climbing this pretty good hill that we generally run up, and he said, "You're just a different runner." He said,
That's fantastic.
You've gotten to that next level."
Yeah.
And I mean, it definitely shows in how I feel and how I've been running.
And the great thing too is you took all this knowledge and you put together a workshop.
Without a doubt. So
Yeah.
I have a lower body
Yeah.
bulletproof workshop that I'll be presenting here in the office and in remote locations.
Awesome. Nutritionally, because I try to convince you to eating 2 yams, but you're up to eating 1. Nutritionally, what are you doing differently this last week that you weren't doing like a month ago?
So let's rewind to a month ago. I have not had any type of true carbohydrate in about a year and a half since I started to follow a fat-adapted strict keto diet. We had a conversation, and you recommended yams, sweet potatoes as a carbohydrate prior to my longer runs. So with some resistance, I did give it a shot, and definitely noticed a difference. There's a little bit of a pep in my step.
Sure.
So before all my long runs, I made sure to eat a sweet potato.
Sure.
And so this week, when I was carb dependent, when I did eat carbohydrates, I still was not a fan of carb loading.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
I felt sluggish. I didn't feel well. These pasta dinners before these marathons, they don't make sense to me.
Well, I mean, even people doing a 5K, they're eating a bagel before they run. Makes no sense.
A bagel, a
Yeah.
banana, and some Gatorade or sport drink. To me, carbohydrates just sort of bog me down, and that's how I've always felt with them. So even when I wasn't keto, I would just do a baked potato or a sweet potato the night before, and that was it. I would have a normal dinner: some vegetables, potato, and a protein.
And that's the great thing about having the yam, because it's especially eating it cold, it's a resistant starch. So this way it's not going to really influence your insulin too much. It's got tons of antioxidants for you as well. And basically you're going to help top off those glycogen stores in your muscles. So this way your body has some glycogen for your run. Of course you're very fat adapted, so your body's primarily going to be using fat for its fuel. But you're topping off that glycogen store, which is pretty important, especially at marathon pace.
And to keep the insulin low, and I also add a little bit of ground cinnamon a lot of
Yeah,
times
fantastic. Yep, yep.
to my sweet potatoes.
Yeah, cinnamon does help regulate your insulin level too, prevent spikes. Good.
And it gives it a little bit of a sweet flavor,
Yeah, absolutely.
which is sort of nice.
What about the day of the race? What are you going to be eating? What time are you waking up?
So race start is at 7:10.
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably be up 4:30, 4:45. Coffee with heavy cream. Get the bowels moving. That's the most important detail.
Part of the day. Yep.
I will get to the race site at least an hour and 10 minutes before, and so I'll start this race completely fasted. I will use these. They're called F-bombs, and they're macadamia nuts and coconut oil and almond nuts. It's a gel.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit of a bigger gel than what you'd see the normal running gels. And it's about 205 calories.
Yep.
I'm going to see how things go. So I've run my 20 miles and I've only used one, and it was about halfway through. On the 120 miler, the other 20 miler, I used nothing, and I did 20 miles completely fasted, and ran a very decent pace and felt great afterwards. So it's going to be a little bit of a how do I feel?
Sure.
And when I actually decide to fuel, I'll have them on me. I'll have them in my shorts, and
that's the thing. You've done this before, so you kind of have like the mental idea of like how am I feeling? What you know how to gauge yourself.
right.
Sure. And that's the thing. What I recommend people to do is when they're trying to find a nutritional plan, everybody's different. So you need to try this out in your training, and then let it carry over to your actual race.
Brings me to a great point. So as far as race day goes, no one should ever do something on race day that they did not try in training, and that's from fuel to sneakers to your shirt to if you wear underwear, whatever it is, because if you go to the expo the day before and you're like, wow, that's a nice shirt, look at that shirt, and you put on, and now you're chafing, and you're mile 12 and your arm is on fire and you're
or let me try this new gel, let me try this new thing. Yep.
Now it's not agreeing with your stomach.
And then you're in the bathroom with an explosion going on. Yeah,
exactly.
Totally.
So nothing new race day. As far as my race week prep, a lot of active recovery and a lot of rest.
Sure.
So what's my active recovery this week? I'll run two times 3 miles. The day before, I always like to just run a mile to 2 miles. That's it. It'll be a 7 to 14 minute run, something like that.
Yeah, wake up the legs.
Wake up the legs, that's all. And so I'm spinning a lot. And when I say spinning, I'm literally getting on my bike and I am pedaling. There's no effort. It's not a hard gear. I have a bike trainer set up at my house, so it's very, very gentle. And again, keep my legs fresh. A lot of rest, a ton of rest, legs up as much as possible. And there's a ton of things that you do around my house. I'm putting them off until next week.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you've got a goal. You've got a big goal that you got in front of you. Now, what's your time going to be? When you're visualizing, this is the time I need. What's the time you're gonna cross that finish line?
So I'm gonna meet up with the 305 pace group, and I'm gonna hope to be around 305.
Sure.
It's certainly gonna be a challenge, and honestly, I think the body's prepared for this. If my foot's not giving me too much trouble, I think I'll be able to hold that pace. But it really comes down to the mental aspect of it.
Sure.
It's really what it is. And I just need to stay focused. I need to stay on that path and not think about, oh my God, I have another X amount of miles, or oh wow, I'm at 20 and I'm right on pace. Because either way, you could lose it either way, for the better or for the worse.
How's the weather looking for this weekend?
Weather looks tremendous. 58% humidity, which is really good. I've had a lot of trouble running in the humidity this year. So 58% humidity, a high of about 74, and a low in the mid-50s. So I'm hoping it to be that mid-50s at the start. And the race starts at 7:10, so hopefully done, no later than 10:20. So by then, I don't anticipate the heat really getting there just yet.
Sounds like you got all your variables in check, and that's the only thing you actually can control. You can control all of your functional strengthening you're doing before, actually even before that, identifying what your weaknesses are. So being very honest with yourself, strengthening up those weaknesses, keying in and dialing in your nutrition, really chilling out the week before, not changing anything, staying with the program, and then just basically you can't control the weather. You just got to show up and run your race.
That's right, and you made a good point about not changing anything. I could easily mess a lot of things up by trying to fast more than I normally do, or trying to eat different foods, or try and train and have hormone releases because I changed things.
Right.
And when you have a big goal, it's one thing if, and I don't want to discredit any, but if somebody's just running a marathon to run a marathon, I just want to finish it. That's a great goal. Maybe all these variables don't matter as much, but when you're shooting for a goal, you're trying to run a fast marathon. I hate to use this word. I hate to use this word, but micromanage.
Sure.
Yeah, and you have to plan.
Yeah, totally. Discipline and planning.
Absolutely.
Well, we're gonna wish Dom the best of luck this Sunday.
Thank you, sir.
And then what we're gonna do is next week we're gonna do a follow-up to this podcast with the results of Dom's race. And what we're also gonna be doing, probably I think we set the date for September 18th. We're gonna go and let you in Dom's world, and Dom's going to put on a workshop called Bulletproof Your Lower Body Against Injury. And this is basically the exercises that Dom's been doing to strengthen up his body, prevent injuries through training for his marathon, and what's going to prove to give him excellent results at his race on Sunday. Well, wish you the best.
Thank you, sir. Much appreciated.